Welcome to this edition of Safety First. I'm your host, Tim Kelly. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about an event coming up in May called Safe Hands. It will be held right here in the city of Suffolk at the East Suffolk Recreation Center. And to get us started talking about this topic, we have two members of the Suffolk Police Department. We have Sergeant Cheryl Balzer and Emergency Communications Operator Supervisor Erin Hughes. Thank you, ladies, for both being with us today.
Tim, for having us.
Thank you. Now, we talk about Safe Hands. What is the event all about, and who are you trying to reach out to participate and come to the event itself?
The purpose of the event is to try to provide citizens with some useful knowledge regarding crisis situations.
Okay. And then the people you want to have come out to talk about that and listen to the presentations would be whom? Who's the intended audience?
For us, we want those families that have members in their family that they have issues with or some problems. We want to get the family in there to see what kind of services that we offer through our partnership with Western Tidewater Community Services Board. It's more for them so much as it is for the person that is in crisis,
right.
And not necessarily in crisis as well. It could be a number of things. It could be autism, Alzheimer's,
Sure.
Wounded, what we call PTSD with Wounded Warriors.
Right.
It's a huge environment that we are trying to reach out to.
So really what you're trying to do is share information with those families that find themselves in those situations or have members of their family that perhaps may be in the situations you described, and letting them know what, like you said, what services the police department and your partners can provide, as well as when a situation may come up, kind of what's going to happen as far as what information you need and how that process will kind of roll forth. Is
Yes,
that right?
yes.
To make sure everybody kind of knows and kind of is thinking about what may occur before it occurs with regard to the response from public safety. Is that a good way to put it?
That's a real good way to put it, because there's a lot of times that we have from Erin, she's one of our supervisors
Right.
in dispatch.
Yes.
A lot of times the person calling in doesn't understand why she may be asking some of the questions that she's asking.
Yes.
They just know that they're having an emergency situation.
Right.
They want immediate response.
Yes.
But the dispatchers have a huge role in what we need information-wise from the person that is calling us for that help.
Correct.
So there's questions that they ask, and at the time, that person may not understand why they are asking that. And we hope by providing this information, I believe, Erin, you have a PowerPoint that you're going to be showing.
Yes, I do.
Right.
At this little mini seminar that we're
Yes.
doing.
Yes.
Things like that we hope to get that information out there to them. And then why we as law enforcement do some of the things that we do when we're on scene, and why I'm sure Western Tidewater, they have their presentation on why some of the things that they have to do are
Yes,
necessary.
yes.
So yes.
And I would imagine when these situations come up, it can be stressful, as you said, for the person making the call or the family member handling that, but to understand a little bit about maybe what could potentially occur, or sort of, like you said, why the questions are being asked, or why the
Absolutely.
processes are that way, then you have an idea so that you can better probably connect all the things together to get from point A to point B, which is, to where the situation had begun, and getting to a quick and as easy as possible resolution, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as far as the day of the event, I mean, why do both of you, and I guess both of you can chime on this, why do you feel it's important that the families and the folks that have family members or relatives or whatever the situation is that may be having these situations, why it's important for them to come? I mean, certainly we can say we would like you to come, but why? I know we talked a little bit about it, but the importance of being there so they can figure out how Suffolk reacts, no matter what agency is involved, to these type of situations. I don't know if both of you could kind of think why you think someone would want to really be there.
Well, I can answer personally for me. As a grandmother of two autistic children and a daughter of a mother with Alzheimer's, there's a lot that I have learned from the law enforcement side that most people don't realize why we are doing the things that we do. And it's important for them to have that information. This is critical for our department. We've been partnered with Western Tidewater Community Service Board for years now because we knew how important this was in working with the public. And it's basically just, they don't, without that knowledge, without that understanding, it makes it very difficult for them. to know why we do the things we do, why Erin asks the questions that she asks, and we want them to have that that knowledge. It just allows them to, a lot of times for us, it will de-escalate a situation.
Correct.
Instead of them becoming frustrated as to, for example, if they have a father who has wandered away and we're asking questions and all they know is, why aren't you here yet? Why aren't you doing certain things? And it's frustrating for them. If they understand why we're asking what we ask, I think that kind of calms the situation down a little bit. Plus, it's a twofold meeting that we're doing here. We want them to know what services are out there as well, in regards to what NAMI is, what the Wounded Warrior Project is, because there's other services available to them besides just through the police department and Western Tidewater Community Service Board. So it's a effort for us, not an effort, but a opportunity for us to get the public aware of what we are, what we have, what's available to them.
And I think that's important, that not only it's about what we're going to do in that situation, but also the resources that are out there that the families may not be aware of that can certainly help them in one way or another. But I think just connecting those resources and getting that information there, because sometimes I guess you can kind of feel alone, that you don't have all the answers and you don't know where to go, but this is a great opportunity to possibly get some answers to those questions, or at least begin the path to do that.
You're right.
Yeah. Now, Erin, as far as from your role, certainly working with dispatch, you know, these situations, you and your coworkers are certainly heavily trained as far as how to handle multitude of situations.
Yes.
And I think this is a good event to say that you're kind of meeting someone or some of the people that are behind the phone in the situation at the time the phone call is made. And I guess that kind of helps put a face to a name, or a face to a voice, we should say, so that they know these are real people that are trying to help and try to connect resources and get everybody together when those situations arise, right?
Yes, that's correct. We coordinate the response. So whether it be something that requires only police response, police, fire, and EMS, all of that requires coordination, sending the appropriately trained personnel. That is what we do. That's why we need to ask the questions that we ask, and to try to explain to someone who's in a crisis situation, calm down, it's okay, we're sending help. They just know that nobody's at their door yet. So if they know in advance what's going on behind the scenes, while the response is happening, while that phone call is taking place, everything else that's going on, it can go a long way in keeping somebody calm and helping them understand what we're doing.
Very good. Now, of course, we've talked a lot about the event and sort of the method behind while all this is coming together, the bringing together resources here. We haven't mentioned about the date or the time. We did say the location is East Suffolk Recreation Center, and of course there is no charge for the event. So if one of you want to kind of tackle the nuts and bolts about what we're talking about with, you know, date and time and everything, and the fact that you need to register too.
Sure, it's going to be on May 17th at East Suffolk Recreation Center from 5:30 to 7:15 p.m. Pre-registration is required. I believe the information is going to be on the bottom of the screen for everyone to make that phone call and pre-register. It is a free event.
Okay. And again, I believe there will be a light dinner provided as well for those that are participating.
Yes,
so again,
yes.
because it is an evening event, so we have that going on as well. Okay, so, and again, you mentioned about some of the partnerships as far as with organizations and things, in Western Tidewater Community Service Board, one of the big partners there. Just talk about how that partnership is and sort of what the two organizations work together to do in these situations. I mean,
it's absolutely a critical partnership, I think, especially when you consider what you see across the nation right now with law enforcement. Western Tidewater has partnered with us since probably around 2010, 2011. So this isn't just something that just popped up recently.
correct.
We've worked tirelessly to put together what we call our crisis intervention team, and we could not have done it without their support. They are a critical component of what we do there. When we have to take someone into custody, let's say that's in a mental health crisis, it's critical for us to get them the help that they need. We don't just want to pick them up and take them, say, to the regional jail. We want them to have the services that they need, and that's where it's critical that we be involved with the Community Service Board. To that end, we've developed a drop-off area where we can actually take someone that is in crisis. They actually have a mental health worker that is there to assist with whatever crisis they're in. So this has all been, as I say, just something that we could not have done without them.
Right.
So it's been a really good partnership, I believe. Aaron has been one of our instructors. We've worked closely with them. Karen Nicely, who is with the Community Service Board, is also one of our instructors that works with us, that we teach our officers in how to deal with someone that's in a mental health crisis. So it's been a great partnership. I can't say enough good about it.
And I think that's important. You talked about the training that's involved and the fact that these situations can be unique, and the fact of understanding of what you and your fellow officers and certainly you and your fellow dispatchers need to do when it comes to working with either the person or the family or anybody involved in the situation to make sure, again, the resolution is as smooth as possible. But again, it's the knowledge that's there and the fact that you are working to better educate and know how to, as best as you can, handle those situations to make them, again, as smooth as possible.
Well, and that's what we hope to gain by this Safe Hands first one. That's
Right.
what we want to get out there.
Right.
We want the public to know what we want to do for them, what we're able to do for them.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you ladies both for being with us today to talk about this very important event that's coming up very, very soon. So again, I want to encourage anyone who's interested to certainly make that phone call, register for the event, and certainly attend and everything. And again, I appreciate everything the Suffolk Police Department is doing to bring this event together to make it happen, working with their partners. So again, thank you both for joining us for this.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back now and joined by Brandon Rogers, who's with the Western Tidewater Community Services Board. He's the Administrator of Program and Service Development. Brandon, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, certainly we spent part of the program talking about Safe Hands and what the event's all about. But I'd like to know your perspective from your organization's involvement. What do you feel like the people that will be attending will get out of the event, and really what the purpose of the event really at its core is?
Sure, we have a lot of individuals that the first time that they come into contact with the behavioral health or mental health system, it happens during a crisis.
Right.
And so often people are unaware of what to expect.
Yes.
They're unaware of what law enforcement responsibilities are and what the responsibility of the CSB is. That's all dictated by the Code of Virginia when you initiate an ECO process, which is an emergency custody order.
Right.
And so we would like to make sure that folks are aware of how we're going to respond, the kind of questions we're going to ask, as well as what resources are available before you get to the point of crisis. I think that's just as important as what is going to happen at the point that you make that 911 call.
Correct.
We would like to avoid the 911 call
course.
and be able to provide some services and supports to keep somebody stable in the community. Our goal is always the least restrictive setting.
Yes.
So being able to maintain somebody in their home with their family members and natural supports around, and to try to alleviate those symptoms of that behavioral health crisis.
And I think we've been talking about the fact of we want to get the information, or the intent of the event is to get the information out there so that families know what to expect if an event like we're trying to talk about occurs, but also again sort of prevention or resources that are there to help no matter what the circumstances are as we go through the time. But I think that's where it gets important, again, with your organization and some of the others that are partnering here, to talk about what you provide to, again, hopefully you don't get to those crisis situations, but if you do, what's going to happen, but also maybe also what's going to happen after that situation. Right. And I think that's what's important. And when we talk about the Community Services Board here, what territory are we talking about that you cover?
Sure. We cover the city of Suffolk, the city of Franklin, and the counties of Isle of Wight and Southampton. And so we've got a little larger catchment area than just the city, but we do provide services, the emergency services that we have available. It's about 140,000 individuals in our catchment area.
Wow, okay. And talk about, your organization's relationship with the Suffolk Police Department. I know we talked about the crisis intervention team and things like that. And again, where does the Community Services Board come into play when an event occurs? Again, the 911 call is made, so again, dispatch and police do their thing, so to speak, and fire and rescue depending upon the circumstance. But how does your organization come into play, and at what point did everybody kind of intersect right there?
Right. So we're probably coming into play before we're even involved in the actual event, because we've worked on that crisis intervention training. So we're helping, we bring our psychiatrists out, we bring different counselors, and even some individuals that have experienced severe mental illness, and they're talking about their own recovery stories, so that police officers know what to expect and how to respond in the way that's going to keep everybody safe. At the point that a emergency custody order is brought into play, our staff are responsible for doing what we call a pre-admission screening. It's a formal formal process defined by the Code of Virginia in which we determine if somebody is a risk to themselves or others and whether or not we need to look at an involuntary hospitalization. The police also have the opportunity to bring them to our drop-off center, and we can look at voluntary assessment options and voluntary placements in the hospital if the individual is capable of consenting, or looking at a safety plan to send somebody home. So that intersection occurs a lot of times with that judgment of the officer of what's the safest thing for the individual in the best case scenario. So that training is really important for them to be able to think about what options are available from our end.
And I think in that situation, knowledge is power with regard to knowing how this can go in different directions and what those directions are, and determining the best course for everybody to kind of intersect and provide the services that are needed at that given moment, correct?
That's correct.
Now, if someone is thinking, you know, this event, it sounds like something I might be interested in, what would you say to tell them to maybe kind of make that step, to make that phone call, to get registered and to attend? Just, you know, your sales pitch, if you will.
Sure. It's really important for families to know what to expect in a process, because when you get to that crisis event, that frontal cortex of your brain is what's not working at that point. It's only, you know, what you're working on habit and what you've learned over time and some of that experience. So if you have some of those things pre-planned and planted in your brain of this is what I need to do, this is what I need to say,
Yes.
these are the things that my loved one responds well to,
Correct.
it makes it a lot easier for the dispatch as well as for the officers that arrive on scene with that information to know how to respond. We've had situations with individuals that don't respond well to police officers.
Correct.
And so an officer walking in and taking charge of a situation, as they typically would, may exacerbate the situation,
Right.
and we may want to be thinking about how that officer should be prepared for that.
Correct. Very good. And again, sort of training the trainer, so to speak, in a roundabout way when those situations occur. And again, I know this situations can be very stressful for everyone involved, but again, the smoothest resolution is what everyone's out to do to kind of help the person that's in that crisis get to that point where they're settled, correct?
Absolutely.
Very good. So again, the event's coming up, I believe, May 17th. Safe Hands, going to be held at East Suffolk Recreation Center. And Brent, I want to thank you and the Western Tidewater Community Services Board for being a part of this and certainly sharing the resources you do throughout the year, I should say, with the community and the communities that you serve. And appreciate everything that y'all do.
Right. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. That would do it for this edition of Safety First. I'm your host, Tim Kelly. Again, inviting you to attend Safe Hands. And again, if you'd like to register, the information is on the screen. Be sure to get that registration done and attend, as we noted, the event on May 17th. Thanks very much.